Hello, good evening, and welcome back. Now that the election turmoil seems to be winding down for most people from the States, but let's not forget that, of course, it isn't over and there's more evidence coming out every single day, if not every single hour. These people just don't sleep. But as it's supposed to be a given that Biden has won, despite he hasn't won yet, we've seen now COVID isn't such a big deal. Numbers are being admitted to be a little bit fallible, and people made mistakes, which is what we're going to focus on here. And then also, of course, Pfizer's vaccine coming out with very coincidental timing. And we all know who'll get the praise for that. In fact, Pfizer didn't want to take funding from any political parties in order to try and keep it apolitical, but hey, when it's front and centre like this, you can't keep politics out of it, seeing as the left seems to want to put politics into everything, and in order to play that game, that definitely is going to include politics in the most pressing issue of the year. But from the people who were responsible for suggesting this lockdown, now we've got them saying that they were wrong. They've made mistakes. Now, there's a difference between a mistake, a falsehood, and a lie. It comes from the knowledge at the time and also the intent. But I'll leave it to you if you wish to say it was a mistake or a lie. So as we see from the Mail Online, prominent Sage advisor says Chris Whitty and Patrick Vallance have both made mistakes during the pandemic and warns COVID will be with humanity forever, even with a vaccine. Yes, the most likely reason is because of mutations, but you could also say because the antibodies only seem to last a few months. Whichever way you wish to go along there means it will probably be endemic or seasonal, so it will always be with us. In which case, the best way is to let it run through, and then we're all okay, because we can't keep having lockdowns. Obviously, it ain't going to work. Not only because you're going to tank the economy as it's already done so, and no, that isn't some esoteric creation of the economy. That is individuals being able to live. If you can't provide value to somebody else, you're not going to get any value in return, which means you won't be able to eat. It's as simple as that. So they go on to say, Sir Jeremy Farrar said scientists have been pushed to the forefront of the crisis. And that is an important delineation as well. It's not that the science has been front and centre, it's that scientists have been front and centre. Science is something that you need humans to kind of push the notion forward, but they need a lot more humans to tear it apart. If you've just got one person with science, that is essentially just an opinion, until it is peer-reviewed, ripped apart, and then stripped down so its most core elements of things that cannot be disproven. You don't have science. You don't. The initial idea of science, and one popular definition, is to use models with past knowledge for predictive capability of the future. That is it. It's just all modelling. And in order for that to work, of course, it needs to be peer-reviewed. Otherwise, it's just going to be somebody with their confirmation bias pushing their own agenda. So, listen to science, sure, but question the scientists as well. Goes on to say, mistakes have been made by the TMO and CSA, he said, while praising their work. Got to play both sides here. He's just leaving the chat. So Jeremy said he was very optimistic after a vaccine breakthrough, but he suggested it won't make the coronavirus go away because it is endemic. Yep, and flattening the curve, sure, lovely idea, because you don't want to overwhelm the NHS, which I think has been overwhelmed for the past few decades, at least. It's just always, it's been a topical news story forever. I don't think at this point it can be called contemporary news, seeing it's just a known trait. It's same story, same players, same result. No matter what. Just, NHS is overwhelmed. So, okay, we're going to shake some things up, change things over. How's it going? Still overwhelmed. Okay, we're going to recruit some more people. So let's find some people from other countries and bring them in. How's it doing? We're still overwhelmed. Okay, we're going to increase the funding for you. We're going to build you new hospitals. How's that going for you? We're still overwhelmed. So, okay, we're going to severely restrict the number of people going to hospitals. How's that going for you? We're still overwhelmed. Hmm. Do you ever get the feeling that if there's a government entity that gets government money, that they're never going to say they're satisfied with what they've got? It's like the old joke that is the safest position to have in the army from a job standpoint is to be in the music band. That's it. Simply because in order to try and make a scene, if there are army cuts, they're going to get rid of their most vital assets first to prove that they clearly need all that money. They're not going to cut the less useful parts, because otherwise they'll be admitting, yeah, we were wrong and we were taking too much money and therefore we shouldn't be paid as much either. And they're never going to do that. So at some points, at some terrible points, and Paul Joseph Watson's done an expose on foreign aid for this, but it's just a racing the clock at the end of the year in order to ensure that you've spent all your government funding so that you then say, oh, I need at least that much again this year as I did last year. Because they're not providing the value, they're just making a claim and trying to appeal to emotions instead and say, oh yeah, we clearly must have it because of reasons. And that's it. So yeah, of course the NHS will always be overwhelmed. So, a prominent Sage advisor today claimed that both Professor Chris Whitty and Sir Patrick Vallance had made mistakes during the pandemic. Sir Jeremy Farrar, the director of the Wellcome Trust, said scientists had been thrust into the forefront of debate during the coronavirus crisis. But during a vital briefing today, he added, I've made mistakes, Patrick and Chris would say they've made mistakes, but science has been front and centre. Sir Jeremy, who also publicly thanked the pair's contribution to navigating the UK out of the pandemic, did not refer to which mistakes he meant. Well, no, of course, he's got to basically try and play both sides. Because he'd still want a job after this, for example. So, what mistakes could he have been referring to? The 4,000 deaths per day doomsday dossier. So the government recently came under fire for using inaccurate figures in televised address to the nation when Bojo announced another nationwide lockdown amid fears the NHS would become overwhelmed without urgent action. Patrick Vallance, Number 10's chief scientific advisor, presented a now infamous graph suggesting there could be 4,000 deaths per day by December 20th if nothing was done. At the time on Halloween, the tiered system was in place, but Sage had been banging the drum about a national lockdown for weeks. But these figures, created from University of Cambridge and PHE, were based on outdated data from October 9th before the new tier system came into force. Scientists from Oxford University said if the forecasting was correct, then there would currently be about 1,000 deaths per day, yet the average on the day lockdown was announced was 300. The modelling was also based on the reproduction rate being at 1.3 to 1.5, despite government understanding it to be between 1.1 and 1.3. Quite far out. Outdated. Just a mistake, of course. Yeah, definitely not trying to push an agenda that they were pushing for a long time and trying to prove they were right. The lowest projected deaths using the model were 497 deaths on November 15th, which is likely to be more accurate considering yesterday, Remembrance Day, Armistice Day, November 11th, 595 deaths were announced. Yeah. Seems better. So whatever they say of their estimates, you just go with the lowest one, and that's more likely to be correct. Fantastic. So the pair were asked by Tory MP Aaron Bell whether the avalanche of data presented on Saturday was an appropriate way to make their case to the nation. Seeing as they're all saying, oh, what about all these worst case scenarios? I was like, yes, but how likely is a worst case scenario? It's like, not likely at all. Then it'll be fine. It's the same thing as, oh, well, I was thinking of going out because I could do with some food so I don't die of starvation. But there is a chance I'm going to get run over. And, worst case scenario, I'm dead in the road. It's like, well, how likely is that though? Not very. You're fine. Don't worry about it. And the 50,000 cases per day graph. So, Professor Whitty and Sir Patrick terrified the nation on September 21st by their gloomy prediction. The cases may reach 50,000 per day by mid-October if nothing is done. They claimed infections were doubling every week. We all remember that. In line with growing outbreaks in Spain and France. Experts slammed the implausible claim, insisting that neither France nor Spain had yet to see anywhere near that level of infection, despite witnessing a clear resurgence in the disease. Critics accused Number 10 of trying to scare people. Even the PM appeared to undermine the pair when he admitted cases in the UK could be taking as long as 20 days to double in number. So it's quickly revealed this was not a prediction. It was heavily based on findings of a weekly survey for ONS and the React1 survey by ICL. So, what actually was it then? What was it? Well, the Department of Health figures show that by mid-October, 15,000 to 18,000 people were diagnosed with COVID-19 per day, around 3 times smaller than the worst case scenario. And even for asymptomatic cases, because people wouldn't have symptoms, they wouldn't get tested, and other people who don't want to be tested because they don't want to have time off work and they don't think it's such a serious problem, and would rather people took personal responsibility. So just don't go outside if you're so concerned, just like you do for everything else. So even thinking that more people have it, well, that would double it to 35,200 people, which is still less. Still less. The agency predicts COVID infection by swabbing thousands of random households in the UK, but it does not give a prediction of new cases per day in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. Whitty and Patrick also said if cases reach 50,000 per day, it could lead to 200 deaths a day by November, which has turned out to be the case. Probably. Many caveats here, but at least it is nice to see that they are at least backtracking a little bit, because yes, of course, we've been eagle-eyed and looking at what's been going on compared to what they've said and pointing it out the whole way, but people are still skeptical and wish to trust that authority figure. So now that it's finally come from them themselves to say that they've made mistakes, hopefully people will be more wary in the future to just take things for granted. But maybe this will just be memory hold again, and we'll just have to keep saying, yeah, listen to experts, sure, but still question the data. But as always, let me know what you guys think down below. Always intrigued to what you guys have to say. Whether you think that, yes, this is convenient timing, now that Biden's in and there's a vaccine, very convenient timing there as well. They're trying to push this to say it's going to be okay now, and then blame it all on Trump retrospectively. Of course, what happens when Trump's lawsuits come into action and he ends up winning a second term? Well, then we're probably going to see a resurgence and the Pfizer vaccine won't be so effective, won't we? Or, they have to delay it more because they got to have the stage 3 testing, because you should wait a few years to see any effects of vaccines, not just a few months, like we normally do. But yeah, let me know down below. Always intrigued to hear what you have to say. And as always, until next time, like, share, comment, subscribe. All the good stuff really does help the channel out a lot. And have a good one.